Coming up on a special edition of Investigate TV, families torn apart.
Nobody calls for help. They just let them lay and die.
Lives ruined by rituals that put people at risk.
No other family needs to go through this. No other young adult needs to go through this.
Young men across the country beginning new lives at college instead meet a tragic end.
Do you see his chest rising at all?
I don't see it rising, guys.
In the last 20 years, dozens of deaths and countless injuries, all potentially preventable and all linked to fraternity hazing. Traditions involving forced binge drinking and physical abuse.
Why would you use alcohol use as the litmus test of manhood?
Universities nationwide handing out slaps on the wrist and allowing hazing cases to stay under wraps.
More has to be done. We need leadership on university campuses to step up and do a whole lot more than they've done up to now.
As some of the fraternities where it happens come up with their own secretive system to help them dodge responsibility.
They've been able to convince courts in various jurisdictions that they're somehow unable to control the day-to-day operations of the fraternity, which is just absolute total bull.
Here is Joce Sterman with Hazed and Excused.
Hazing may seem like an old-time tradition with wooden paddles and initiation stunts, but with college students back on campus, thousands of young men are now deep into the process of pledging a fraternity. And our months-long national investigation discovered the risks of the so-called bonding rituals they'll be part of are still very real. Our team dug into records for some of America's biggest universities, uncovering dangerous and sometimes deadly hazing that is still happening right now across the country. A warning, some of what you're about to hear and see is disturbing.
What County 911, what is your emergency?
Hi, someone that we know is non-responsive and he drank alcohol, like a lot of alcohol.
It's just before midnight, March 4th, 2021, at Bowling Green State University in Ohio.
Do you see his chest rising up and down?
No, not right now.
Okay, he's blue?
Yeah.
Okay, then there's a good chance he's not breathing.
The once vibrant sophomore, Stone Foltz, is on the floor of his apartment, purple and unresponsive. Just an hour before, he'd been at Pi Kappa Alpha, attending an initiation event, where police say he downed an entire bottle of bourbon in 23 minutes.
You see his chest rising at all?
She said, does you see his chest rising? I don't see it rising, guys.
A dispatcher counts through compressions.
4,
Higher and higher they go, every number a prayer.
8, 9.
And when they're done, the critical question.
You do see it going up and down?
Flip him, please.
Do you see his chest?
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Is it rising
Oh
or
my
not?
God! No! No!
Put someone else on the phone. Put
Yeah.
someone else on the phone right now that will help him.
But help for the 20-year-old business student, athlete, and big brother is too late. Doctors cannot save Stone Foltz, who died 3 days later from fatal alcohol intoxication. His death, one of at least 50 in the last 22 years, linked to hazing.
It's a blow to the chest, and you never get used to it.
Hank Newer knows more about hazing incidents than most. He's written 5 books about the topic and maintains what many consider the most comprehensive database of hazing deaths in the country.
For example, this one's a death, Chico State University.
Newer's research shows that between 1959 and 2022, hazing has humiliated countless students, with at least one of them severely injured or killed every single year. Why do you think people hold so tightly to these rituals or traditions that essentially put everybody at risk?
They bond. Hazing, unfortunately, does bond people together, and it gives them a quote-unquote family. Students make friends for life. That has been part of the problem with alumni fighting to keep what they call traditions, and I call dangerous stunts.
Some call it criminal, but our months-long investigation found that depends on where you live. Our national investigative team analyzed state hazing laws nationwide. We found a patchwork of regulation that's done little to stop these disturbing and sometimes deadly rites of passage. 6 states currently have no anti-hazing laws on the books at all. In 22 states across the U.S., schools don't have to write or post policies against the practice. And only 10 require colleges and universities, including private schools, to publicly report hazing cases.
There's so much more information that you need to make an educated decision.
I love that one, though.
Yeah.
Evelyn and Jim Piazza got an education in hazing the worst way possible. It cost them their youngest son, Tim. The 19-year-old was on his very first night of pledging Beta Theta Pi at Penn State University in February 2017, when a lawsuit filed by his family claims he went through a legendary hazing event, the alcohol-fueled obstacle course known as the Gauntlet. After surviving the drinking contest behind these doors, Tim, who was heavily intoxicated, fell down the stairs and was knocked unconscious. He was dumped on a couch in the basement and largely ignored for hours, with no call to 911, even though his family says Tim struggled overnight, falling again.
It took us 19 years to raise an incredible, amazing individual, and it took 12 hours for people to destroy that.
But tragedies have continued to span the nation. Our national investigative team spent months digging into the hazing that's continued since Tim's death, filing information requests for hazing reports from the 46 largest public and private universities required by law to make them public. We ultimately found or obtained records from 35 schools, uncovering 342 punishable hazing incidents dating back to 2017. The reports we obtained show fraternities are tied to most of the cases, more than 75% of all the incidents. But trends are hard to analyze given almost half the case reports we obtained didn't include specific details. Still, our team found alcohol was a major factor, cited in more than 120 hazing incidents. 119 cases involved physical abuse, including sleep deprivation, punishments involving food, and strenuous exercise. And 11 hazing reports detailed students placed in compromising or sexually charged situations.
Where does it end? What happens in the next 10 years if we don't stop it?
Yet, despite new tragedies every year, hazing continues. In October 2021, video obtained by our national investigative team shows one of the most shocking hazing cases captured on camera. It features Danny Santulli, a 19-year-old freshman at the University of Missouri. He's in the green blindfold, being herded down the stairs at Phi Gamma Delta fraternity. He's given an entire bottle of vodka to finish, even as brothers funnel beer down his throat. This is Danny Santulli now. A lawsuit filed by his family says alcohol poisoning left him with brain damage, unable to walk, talk, or see.
It's something you can't imagine.
It was unimaginable for Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy until the death of Max Groover in 2017 at his alma mater, LSU. After that, he introduced the End All Hazing Act. The bill would require colleges and universities nationwide to post hazing incidents on their websites. What would you say to the colleges and universities who are unwilling to provide this information and in some cases have to be forced to tell the public what happens?
I would say that points to the need of our legislation. There's always going to be an attorney that's going to screen that letter of request and says this opens us up to liability or to bad publicity, etc. Now, if it's a federal law, it becomes less easy to hide that.
Through dozens of records we obtained, we discovered only about a third of the organizations involved in the incidents we examined were suspended by their universities, and just 11 groups were banned from campus. The decisions permanently breaking those ties that supposedly bind during hazing and leave heartbreak in its wake.
The girls need to go in another room. 23.
Hey, go to another room.
With friends and family on the other end of the phone line as their loved ones become statistics and headline stories. Max, Tim, Danny, Stone. Names that live on when lives are lost to hazing.
Coming up next on Investigate TV, hear from the parents of a student who paid the ultimate price for hazing.
We think the pledge process needs a drastic change.
Hazing incidents on college campuses have taken lives and injured hundreds of students. But we discovered that the punishments that follow do little to curb the problem. And a family that's paid the ultimate cost of hazing is calling for drastic moves to change the pledging system for good.
Great big brother.
Very, very supportive.
Photographs and mementos are not the only things keeping Stone Foltz's memory alive nearly 2 years after his death. Instead, a decision he made at just 16 years old to become an organ donor means his heart still beats on, his lungs still breathe, and critical pieces of his eyes still view the world that continues spinning without him in it.
So the best thing we can do is continue to spread Stone's story and help others.
Stone's story is a tragedy for his parents, Corey and Sherry, and a striking example of what some consider a national epidemic that's killed at least 60 students in the last 23 years. Hazing on college campuses.
No other family needs to go through this. No other young adult needs to go through this. That's our mission.
A mission to end hazing now strengthened by an unlikely source, the university that once denied any responsibility for Stone's death.
This is a historic day.
In January, the family reached a record-setting settlement with Bowling Green. Much of the university's nearly $3 million payout to the Foltzes will go to a foundation named for Stone, focused on a shared mission to eradicate hazing across the nation.
We think the pledge process needs a drastic change.
And the Foltzes' attorney, Rex Elliott, is calling for pledging to be eliminated altogether.
If we eliminate that imbalance of power, I think we have a much better chance of eliminating hazing deaths in this country.
Yet despite deaths and injuries, there's been no significant shift away from the unequal power dynamic of the pledging process. Our national investigative team found that pledging was stopped temporarily, shortened, or moved on campus following just 13 of the 265 punishable fraternity hazing incidents we examined. None resulted in outright pledging bans. The North American Interfraternity Conference, a trade group representing the nation's biggest fraternities, wouldn't talk on camera, but told us that for decades, fraternities have spent enormous resources educating students about the dangers of hazing, how to intervene and prevent it, and how to support victims.
More has to be done. We need leadership on university campuses to step up and do a whole lot more than they've done up to now.
It gives them the opportunity to show these other universities that, hey, we're gonna take charge.
It's nowhere where it needs to be yet, but it's a step forward. It's definitely a step forward.
A step the Foltzes hope will lead toward ending the rituals that rob them of the sun they see now only in pictures. Their new mission, yet another donation, turning Stone's loss into a way to save lives.
Next on Investigate TV.
With the way the fraternities have insulated themselves and played this charade, their mothership has never truly gotten hit financially.
When college students join fraternities, they shell out hundreds of dollars for insurance that's required for membership. But the protection they pay for may be meaningless. That's because of what one attorney calls a secretive scheme. And while not all national fraternities operate this way, we discovered many are able to shift liability for hazing and alcohol incidents back onto fraternity members. What were you thinking about your future in that moment?
Nothing but the best, nothing but a bright future ahead.
Pictures show Nicholas Maurizio left for college, a bright-eyed young man ready to take on the world. But he didn't come home with that same shine.
That spark, Nicholas, like it's not there anymore, that gleam in his eye.
His hopeful gleam is gone, one of many casualties of a traumatic brain injury he suffered at Florida State University. That punch changed your life forever.
Forever.
A punch that knocked Nicholas out and knocked his family's world off its axis. It happened April 2018. Nicholas was attending his first meeting as a brother of Alpha Epsilon Pi when he was picked for a long-standing fraternity tradition he'd never heard of, a dubious honor court records label Scumbag of the Week. He was expecting the standard punishment, a literal slap in the face.
Cocked his fist back and hit me as hard as he could. I got knocked out completely on contact. I fell straight back. My head hit the pavement cement floor.
It took 4 brothers to carry Nicholas's unconscious body into the car and 5 days for him to be discharged out of the intensive care unit of a Florida hospital, where he was treated for a fractured skull and a brain bleed that caused permanent damage.
It broke me, Joce, and just, can you pause just for a second?
Absolutely.
What I want to say.
What happened inside this fraternity house put Nicholas's life on pause for half a decade. His family sued the young man who hit him, 6 of his fraternity brothers, and the national fraternity, claiming leadership at AE Pi knew about hazing problems at the Florida state chapter that had gotten them officially booted from the university just 3 months before Nicholas's incident. But they still took no action to enforce their own policies and protect him.
They kind of like to go under the assumption that even though we're a national fraternity, we're not responsible for what our local chapters do. Like, that's their position that they're put in, and I think that kind of skates them away from responsibility most of the time.
It's a tactic our national investigative team discovered is standard operating procedure in an industry responsible for at least 67 hazing deaths and countless injuries in the last 23 years. We spent months interviewing experts and reviewing lawsuit filings, tax records, and industry documents, uncovering a complex system where national fraternities separate themselves from their local chapters to protect against legal and financial liability in worst-case scenarios, all while profiting off a risk they're well aware of.
The top of the fraternity industry has lots of very smart men that take the advice of lawyers with a great deal of experience on how to evade responsibility for the injury and death they cause.
Doug Fearberg has his own experience representing dozens of hazing victims, pulling back the curtain on a fraternity system that he says uses secretive schemes and tactics that allow national organizations to assert control over local chapters when it suits them, while also washing their hands of responsibility when it doesn't. How they've done it is outlined in a confidential memo he supplied to our team from a meeting of the Fraternity Executives Association more than 10 years ago. Is it a smoking gun?
It's a gun they never wanted to be seen.
The memo outlines a strategy called conscious separation, where national fraternities are encouraged to limit their awareness and oversight of what happens at their local houses, because more involvement equals more potential liability, with executives told prior knowledge of improper acts is fatal.
Conscious separation is a charade created by the lawyers for the national fraternities.
But is it just the appearance of separation?
It's the appearance of separation when separation is necessary to prevent individuals who've been hurt or killed from recovering against the entity that should be paying.
The question of who pays when a fraternity member is harmed by hazing or alcohol is its own complicated issue, and it ties back to a cult classic from decades ago. In the late 70s and early 80s, the movie Animal House put frat culture front and center, glamorizing binge drinking and hazing among brothers. Insurance companies, insiders say, wanted out of the family fast, essentially abandoning the industry as alcohol and hazing-related deaths skyrocketed.
You know, we needed to do something.
David Eastlick was a brother at Delta Kappa Epsilon, or DEEC, in the 1960s. He now testifies against fraternities as an expert witness in hazing cases. For decades, he was the executive director of DEEC's national organization and part of the movement to solve the industry's crisis by banding frats together to create their own insurance system, eventually controlling and providing the liability coverage for local chapters and rolling in the profits.
It gave leverage to the fraternities that they, for the first time, they could really collect money from the undergraduates and count on their loyalty and get their money.
It's big money. Tax records from 63 fraternities we examined show many of their insurance premiums are close to or exceed $1 million a year, with the cost covered by the college students from each local chapter, who have no choice but to pay if they want to be a member. One fraternity tax records show has almost $20 million in assets derived in part from insurance premiums. Another, more than $7 million.
So now you have a circumstance where the national fraternities actually profit on the insurance companies that they own related to the risk that they create and refused to change.
And when something goes wrong and someone gets hurt, That policy generally gives full coverage to the national organization, but leaves the college students who paid virtually unprotected.
It's meaningless insurance. They are absolutely paying for nothing.
Those insurance policies, we discovered, are based on risk management guidelines that would void liability coverage if violated. Our team examined some policies publicly available online and found provisions prohibiting what experts would say is fairly common fraternity behavior, including drinking games, supplying alcohol to minors, the purchase of kegs, the use of alcohol on traditionally deadly ritual nights like bid night, and hazing.
It's essentially a big joke.
A joke orchestrated by the national fraternities that create and implement those policies, but then also claim the rules can't be enforced at a high level.
They've been able to convince courts in various jurisdictions that they're somehow unable to control the day-to-day operations of the fraternity, which is just absolute total bull.
The lobbying group that represents fraternities nationally wouldn't do an interview, but says its members are committed to health and safety as evidenced by those risk management policies, and that their members encourage accountability. That's why they say they don't provide coverage for actions that intentionally endanger others, break the law, or violate fraternity policies. Half a dozen other organizations and individuals that represent fraternity executives, advisors, attorneys, or their insurance companies wouldn't comment, despite repeated requests since early June.
With the way the fraternities have insulated themselves and played this charade, their mothership has never truly gotten hit financially.
Instead, it's the fraternity members who pay. And without coverage from the national fraternity insurance they paid for, settlements, we've learned, end up coming from a surprising source, the homeowner's insurance of their parents.
And I don't think that anyone knows until it happened.
The Maurizio family's attorney confirmed they ultimately resolved civil litigation with 8 individuals linked to the fraternity, with several suits settled through their parents' homeowners insurance. The Mauricio's case against Alpha Epsilon Pi was also resolved, although the fraternity wouldn't comment further about the case, saying they continue to invest in their health and safety program, working hard every day to educate and train their members and reform risky behaviors. Still, Nicholas and his family believe the national fraternity avoided the kind of major blow he couldn't.
I've made a good recovery, Joce, but I'm still making strides and progress every single day.
It's still a battle.
Yes, and it will be a battle for the rest of my life.
The fraternities involved in the cases highlighted in this episode all condemned the actions that led to injuries and deaths. They say they've taken steps to change the culture of their organizations and also implemented health and safety initiatives designed to eliminate hazing. You can read their statements and learn more about the cases on our website, InvestigateTV.com. Thanks for watching.